Heroin Highway. Travel Interstate 70 from Baltimore into Hagerstown.
You don't remember how many times you overdosed?
No, I don't. He was laying there 3 hours before somebody found him.
Take I-81 into Martinsburg, West Virginia.
My son has OD'd 3 times. 3 times and they brought him back.
I have seen young kids even doing it.
Here in Martinsburg? And then keep driving into Virginia.
More deadly than any drug epidemic Virginia has ever seen.
The heroin that killed him was 47% pure. I mean, he didn't have a chance.
We're having so many babies that are experiencing withdrawal.
Up and down the road, everyone blamed the demand on the wave of pain pill abuse. The cheaper option is heroin.
I say it's so much easier to get and quicker.
As for supply, fingers pointed to Baltimore, a heroin stronghold since the 40s, just up the highway.
My family member, that's what he was doing. He was running back and forth to Baltimore.
James Piles is a former Maryland State Police major.
We learned through an investigation a young girl put over 10,000 miles in 1 month on her car driving from Allegheny County to Baltimore City to get her heroin.
Heroin distribution channels in Baltimore had been long established. Maryland State Delegate Brett Wilson was elected in 2014.
One of my biggest regrets now being in a position where I have the opportunity to try and change something in Maryland is not recognizing how we were kind of pushing Baltimore aside for years.
It's the buyer that changed.
Now all of a sudden heroin has made its way out into the white suburbs, and the attention that's being given to it, I applaud. But it's attention, quite frankly, that should have been given to this epidemic a long, long time ago.
Baltimore Police Commissioner Kevin Davis took command a year ago.
This is a Black Hawk helicopter.
He traveled to Columbia, a heroin source country.
It really all starts right here.
And made a commitment.
We have more detectives assigned to work with DEA agents in the city than we've ever had.
If Baltimore is the main source of the heroin that's showing up in our communities, perhaps the answer to the problem is also in Baltimore.
Your recovery is your responsibility.
Israel Kaysen had a 30-year heroin addiction laced with jail time, homelessness, and near death. He's been shot 13 times.
You can't medicate, legislate, or police your way out. You have to change the lifestyle. You need only acknowledge.
He kicked heroin in '95 and began a round-the-clock tough love, total abstinence program. I can't, we can.
They can stop, but you have to learn how to stop. We have a tendency to want people to do it for us. That's part of your disease. You won't do nothing for yourself.
He says more than 20,000 addicts have passed through his doors.
A lot of these people have been out and came back 3 or 4 times.
Adding to the loudest cry we heard all along the heroin highway.
We need more money for treatment.
Former Hagerstown Police Sergeant Kevin Simmers worked narcotics for years. He lost his 19-year-old daughter, Brooke, to a heroin overdose just months ago.
My view on the whole drug war was wrong. It's all bullshit.
Getting rid of the demand means attacking addiction because supply sources can and will adjust. Carl Calder is the special agent in charge of the Washington Field Division of the DEA.
We've seen street gangs from Chicago and Detroit enter into West Virginia,
making the beginning of the heroin highway in Baltimore no longer the end.
You only got 2 choices. Choose life or choose death.
I was right downtown, everybody knew me. My face for 25 years was the face of law enforcement in Washington County.
Former Hagerstown Police Sergeant Kevin Simmers spent 2 decades in the drug war. Then came heroin.
It's unlike any drug or any epidemic that I've ever seen in my career.
It changed him.
My view on the whole drug war was wrong.
After it struck the smiling love of his life.
When it got in my own house and my own daughter got addicted, I couldn't help her.
His daughter, Brooke, had grown into a beautiful athletic teenager, defiant, determined to fly on her own.
When she was finished with high school, that summer is when she started to take pills.
Prescription narcotic pills, opioids. The cheaper, more deadly version is heroin.
I'm telling you, when it got a hook in my daughter, it robbed her of her soul. My daughter meant everything in the world to me. And she come to me asking me to please help her and make this go away.
Simmers and his wife looked near and far for treatment centers.
We took her down to a halfway house and dropped her off. I mean, this is a place that I wouldn't drop my dog off to.
Brooke continued to relapse.
I caught her sneaking out one night. She was on the front lawn in a fetal position, begging me to shoot her because she said she couldn't stop using it.
Brooke eventually was sent to jail for possession of needles. 3.5 months behind bars meant 3.5 months with no heroin.
She was using a gram of heroin a day before she went to jail. And we talked, if you go back to use it, if you try to use a gram now, it's gonna be toxic.
Brooke went to her dealer's house 10 days after she got out of jail. Heroin's hold wasn't finished.
So then they get her more heroin. About 2 or 3 hours later, and they shoot her up again. And at this time, she overdoses again. They threw her out of the house.
She got in her car and managed to drive to a church where she used to play basketball.
And on the church parking lot, she crawled in the back seat of her car and she died there from the overdose of heroin.
Brooke was 19 years old.
Listen, I'm very proud of my daughter. I'm proud to fight the fight that she put up. She lost the fight. She died as a heroin addict. I'm here to tell you she was not a bad person. I try to think about the end goal.
He holds on to his now firm belief
that for 25 years as a police officer, working narcotics and such, I feel like I was wrong. I mean, I locked up people that were in the same shape as my daughter, and they needed help.
Simmers is raising money now and building a 5,000 square foot home in Hagerstown for women in substance abuse recovery, appropriately called Brooke's House.
Even though she's gone, we're trying to do right by her. Like I say, she didn't want to be a drug addict.
Hi, yes, my fiance just overdosed.
Will this movie save lives?
Heroin doesn't care what your skin color is, how smart you are, how old you are, whether you're male or female.
Heroin, the Hardest Hit, is a documentary spearheaded by the Attorney General of Virginia.
We didn't sugarcoat anything. We wanted to tell it like it was.
My mom found me in my room.
It's bringing audiences across the state to tears.
I had a niece die from a heroin overdose.
More Virginians died from heroin and prescription drug overdoses in 2014 than in car accidents.
It actually let me see a glimpse of the other part of my son's life.
Debbie Boast's 27-year-old son Keith was one of the 728 deaths that year.
But there's nothing, you get to a point where you know there is nothing you can do.
Okay, this is the city of Winchester. We are on what's been known as the heroin highway. We've got a problem with heroin in a place like this.
The area surrounding Winchester, Virginia, faced a jump of 1 fatal heroin overdose in 2012 to 33 deaths in 2014. And those weren't the only casualties.
We typically will have somewhere between 3 and 5 babies in the NICU on a daily basis that are being treated for withdrawal.
Newborn babies of opioid-addicted mothers.
It's a miserable thing to watch. It really is.
We represent law enforcement, healthcare professionals, treatment providers, parents who have lost children.
Winchester is addressing the demand side of the epidemic with a Substance Abuse Prevention Council.
We're also looking for affordable, accessible treatment options in our area.
While the Washington Field Division of the DEA goes after the supply side by beefing up its presence.
That was an office in DEA where we only had 2 agents assigned to Winchester, Virginia. We saw the problem. We now have a supervisor and 4 agents.
Treating overdoses as crime scenes.
Conducting an investigation to determine, where did the heroin come from, and then we'll work back to the source from there.
Getting to the source of the epidemic from every angle possible.
This is 911.
And I overdosed.
And I overdosed.
No corner of the Commonwealth is immune from this.
Open the door! I overdosed on heroin.
The answer is no.
Found a body over there. They found a body by the train tracks. That's all they're doing now is just finding bodies.
Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Hi, ma'am.
The devil's drug, if you ask me.
There's too much heroin in Martinsburg. My son has OD'd 3 times. 3 times and they brought him back.
Our resources and information, a lot of it is coming from the Baltimore area.
How bad is it? The fact of the matter is they call this place Little Baltimore now.
We have groups that pool their money together, and one takes a turn and goes and picks it up.
In 2014, the federal government designated Berkeley County as a high-intensity drug trafficking area.
Bad to be recognized, but it's good that we're getting the resources.
The morning we traveled to Martinsburg,
You frustrated?
I am frustrated.
Governor Earl Ray Tomblin had convened a summit on substance abuse.
We've cracked down on pill mills, on illegal use of prescription drugs, but what that has gone to now is the street drugs, the heroin.
Do you know anybody that's been hurt, overdosed, died?
Well, my brother's in jail right now for letting a boy overdose.
As one hospital official explained, they'll see the overdoses, doctors will resuscitate them, bringing them back to life, but sadly, many will then just sign themselves out and walk away.
You see probably something related to heroin every day.
Narcan is the nasal spray used to reverse a heroin overdose. In 2015, the governor reports statewide, first responders administered more than 3,000 doses of Narcan.
I almost feel worse for the loved ones because they feel powerless.
When we met with Kathy Stevens-Butts, she was just days away from the 1-year anniversary of her 23-year-old daughter Tiffany's fatal heroin overdose.
I think the reason that I'm being so vocal about it is because I don't want anybody to be in the position that I was in.
She's still haunted by the lack of treatment options for her daughter.
There was nothing. There was no help. And if you do find somebody that has some kind of program, there's a waiting list that's so long, they're dropping dead before they get there.
Berkeley County's plan to build an inpatient recovery center in Martinsburg met with such controversy, it went to court. As night fell on the day we arrived, a downtown church opened its doors to residents to educate.
It's not a police problem, it's a societal problem. How do you fight it if you don't know what you're fighting?
In a sun-up to sundown battle to save lives.
Pretty significant spike, which is scary.
It's life or death.
Done lost my last brother to heroin. He OD'd.
Against a drug so addictive.
You usually sleep with your shoes on because you don't want to have no in-between time. You got to get your neck fixed.
Hagerstown can't escape its hook, with community EMS crews running to a minimum of 2 heroin overdoses every 24 hours.
Unresponsive and may not be breathing.
Look no further than the increasing use of this plastic tube of nasal spray, Narcan. It reverses the effects of opioid drugs.
About a minute, they start breathing again.
In 2013, Hagerstown EMS crews administered Narcan 122 times. In 2014, 172 times. And in 2015, that number jumped to 234 times.
We don't have a catch program to then bring that person into treatment, and we're working on it.
Working on treatment options to lessen demand, but what about attacking supply?
It has become the heroin highway.
Maryland State Police Captain Mike Fluharty and his troops watch the roads.
Anywhere between 3 to 5 kilos of heroin coming up and down Interstate 70, I-81 to our area here in Hagerstown, Martinsburg area every month. Where are you guys heading to? We're seeing people coming from as far south as Mexico, traveling over, getting on I-81.
Heroin isn't grown in the States. Carl Calder is the special agent in charge of the Washington Field Division of the DEA.
Identifying the players and tracing it back to source countries, and that's what we do.
He points to the poppy farms in Colombia and Mexico for the heroin that ends up in cities like Baltimore, a decades-old heroin stronghold just 74 miles up the highway.
Estimated $1.5 million a day comes out of Baltimore City directly for heroin.
Jim Piles is a retired Maryland State Police major who once led the statewide criminal fight against heroin.
The purity levels are higher now than we've ever seen.
Supplied directly from the streets.
So we're looking for people trafficking heroin up and down the road.
I don't mess with nothing like that.
Yeah.
To every community along the way.
It really is a public health issue.
Can they kick the habit? Yeah, you can kick it. And they just need help.
It was in Hagerstown where a dangerous tale of heroin stopped us cold on a street corner.
Have you ever overdosed?
More than one time, yeah. I should have been dead probably more than one time.
Hope is 36 years old. She's the survivor of a heroin epidemic that's gripping cities along Interstates 70 and 81, the new so-called heroin highway.
It starts with pills, you know, it numbs us.
Like so many of the heroin deaths we reported on this week in the area, from Brooke Simmers in Clear Springs, Maryland, to Tiffany Everhart in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and Keith Edwards of Culpeper, Virginia. The deadly turn to heroin began with prescription pain pills.
You can get the same high off the heroin for cheaper.
Yeah.
And the move to heroin boils down to basic math.
A prescription pill of Oxy, for instance, will sell for $60, and a capsule of heroin sells for $10, $12.
How hard is it to kick heroin?
You get body aches, stomach pains, your eyes water, you throw up. If people had more treatment places for people to go, you might actually get more people off the streets.
She's not alone in her thinking. Just talk to parents of those who've died.
But the way we deal with drug addicts is the way we deal with addiction. We're not dealing with that at all.
There were times when he wanted help, and there was nowhere to go get it.
When I tried to get her help, I got turned down, and a month later she was dead.
As for Hope, she said she was 90 days clean when we met her.
Because I know that's not easy.
No, it's not, but I get up and I pray and I believe in God.
Good for you, girl. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.